Hey guys, tonight we drift back to a time when thunder wasn't just a sound, it was a whisper from the gods. The clouds above Thebes are heavy with rain, but even heavier with fate. You're lying in bed, but your mind is already walking the dusty roads of ancient Greece, where sandals slap on stone and torches crackle in the wind. Tonight, you're not really. You're drifting into a royal city wrapped in moonlight, where kings dream of legacies and goddesses keep score. You might not survive this, by the way, not emotionally. There's betrayal, divine meddling, identity fraud, and a childbirth so dramatic it could headline Mount Olympus weekly. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're still awake, drop your location and local time in the comments. I always love seeing where you're listening from now. Dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. Let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're not a god. Not yet. But the gods are watching you already. You begin where all good stories do end. A war-weary kingdom. Thebes, a stronghold of proud warriors and tired legends, still glows with pride from victories past. But tonight, its queen, Alcmene, cannot sleep. She sits by a low-burning hearth, her fingers nervously wrapping and unwrapping the edge of her woolen cloak. She misses her husband Amphitryon, still away, still fighting, still leaving her bed cold as marble. You don't know it yet, okay? But this night is when everything tilts. Far above the city, on Mount Olympus, Zeus leans over the clouds. Yes, that's Zeus. Lightning beard, booming voice, toga never quite covering enough. He sees Alcmene in her sorrow, and because monogamy isn't really his style, he makes a decision. He's done it before, descended to mortal women in strange forms, turned into bulls or swans, or even a golden shower once. Don't Google that right now. But this time, he chooses something simpler. Deception. He slips into the image of her husband. He waits until night deepens, then cloaks the sky in an extra layer of darkness. The sun, coerced, delays its rise. And so, when Alcmene sees her husband walk through the door, smiling, arms outstretched, she has no reason to doubt. Why would she? The man looks like Amphitryon, speaks like him, smells like him. He even knows details from their last private conversation, stolen from the stars by a god with too much time and too little conscience. The night lasts 3 times as long. Zeus makes sure of it. Candles burn low. The fire crackles. You're somewhere in that room, unseen, watching the shadows dance on the walls as fate weaves a tangled cord. This union part, divine, cart, deception, plants the seed of a legend. But not one seed. No, because Alcmene had already been with her real husband to either just before or just after. Historians still argue whether Zeus came before Amphitryon or the other way around, as if divine paternity tests were ever reliable. What matters is this. Twins begin to form in her womb. One carries the breath of Olympus in his blood. The other is purely mortal, purely brave. She doesn't know she's carrying Hercules yet. She doesn't even know what she's carrying is impossible. In the divine nursery of fate, threads begin to tangle. Clotho, the spinner, tightens one line. Lachesis, the measurer, furrows her brow. Tropos, the cutter, hesitates. This baby isn't on the original draft. Up above, Hera knows something is wrong. She always does. She can smell her husband's cheating like smoke on the wind. She hates him for it. She hates Alcmene too. But most of all, she hates this child who hasn't even drawn breath yet, because this one's different. Zeus doesn't just desire this child. He boasts about him, tells the other gods that the next born of his line will rule all men. Hera hears that, and the heavens tremble a little. You'd think a goddess wouldn't be petty about a baby. You'd be wrong. She hatches a plan. When the time comes, she delays Hercules' birth by manipulating time itself. Yes, literal time. She speeds up the labor of another woman, cousin of Alcmene's, ensuring her son, Eurystheus, is born just before Hercules, just enough to steal the prophecy. The gods are always finding loopholes. Meanwhile, Alcmene begins to labor. It's long, too long. Pain radiates through her like crackling lightning. You can hear her scream echo off the stone walls of the palace. The midwives wring their hands. One even faints. And outside, Thebes holds its breath. No one quite understands what's being born, but even the birds have gone silent in the back chamber. The twin boys are finally delivered. First comes Iphicles, red and wailing, with mortal lungs that announce his arrival to the world. Then comes his brother Silent, not dead, just watching, eyes alert in a way no newborns should be. His hair is dark gold, his hands already strong. When a startled nurse tries to wrap him in linen, he grabs her wrist gently, but with surprising force. This is Hercules, as the Romans would later call him, glory of Hera. A cruel joke, since Hera will spend the next few decades trying to kill him. Back on Olympus, Zeus smiles. Hera clenches her jaw, and in Thebes, a tired queen sleeps, never knowing she has just brought the world's strongest man into a world far too fragile to contain him. You're only a few hours old, and already the universe wants you dead. You're not hungry, not tired, not crying like your twin. You're just awake. That strange, calculating silence newborns aren't supposed to have. The midwives say nothing, but they cross themselves quietly, touching their foreheads and whispering prayers to Hera under their breath. They don't know that Hera is the last deity you should be praying to right now. Meanwhile, outside the royal chambers, Thebes is celebrating. Not just one heir, but two. The halls echo with clapping, and lyres and tipsy nobles slurring toasts. But the queen, she's staring at the ceiling, lips moving in some private conversation with the stars. She hasn't told anyone what she suspects, that something about that long night didn't feel right. That the man who returned from war, sweet and strange, and too gentle, wasn't exactly her husband. Historians still argue whether Alcmene figured it out immediately, or only much later. When whispers turned into stories, and those stories slithered into her ears like slow-moving poison. About your not worrying about that, still wriggling in your swaddle like it's trying to hold back a god. Let's rewind just a touch. Amphitryon, your alleged father, your immortal father, returned from battle the morning after Zeus crept away, as fresh as a soldier could look. He came home expecting a warm bath and maybe a romantic reunion, only to be greeted by a glowing Alcmene and an "Oh, you're back again." It's awkward, to say the least. Alcmene's face falls. "You were just here last night," she says. "No, I wasn't," he replies. Silence. The confusion builds, thick as barley porridge. Kamini isn't stupid. Kaphatria definitely isn't. Sneaky. And let's be real, Zeus never puts the furniture back in quite the same order. It doesn't take long for someone to put two and two together and end up with "oh gods, Zeus impersonated me again." Now, if you're thinking this might start some kind of domestic spat between a queen and a king, you'd be right. But Thebes has protocols for this kind of thing. Weirdly, it's not even the first time a mortal woman has been tricked into intimacy by a god in disguise. Amphitryon does what every confused, mildly insulted husband might do. He visits the Oracle of Delphi. Yep, the ancient Greek equivalent of a DNA test. The Oracle confirms one of these twins is his. The other is not. Fast forward a few months. You and Iphicles are both thriving, if in very different ways. Your twin cries a lot, needs cuddles, and develops at a normal pace. You, on the other hand, outgrow every blanket within days. You lift your own head, You once hold onto a nurse's finger so tightly that she has to ice her hand afterward. The household staff whispers about you. They call you Sunborn, the heavy one, Little Thunder. And Hera hears every word. She's stewing, not just because of the affair, but because Zeus dared to name the child Hercules, glory of Hera, as if she should feel honored, as if she hasn't just been insulted at the highest celestial level. You're a living pun, okay? Baby born from betrayal, carrying a name that twists the knife. So she waits, she watches. And then, on a cool night, when the oil lamps burn low and sleep dusts the palace like ash, she strikes. She sends 2 enormous serpent's knot garden variety snakes. Not even the kind that slither into Greek pottery and slink away. These are God-forged vipers, thick as your father's forearm and tipped with venom that can kill in seconds. They curl through the palace halls like silk over marble, quiet as regret. You're asleep in your cradle. Hercules is too. The room is dark but not silent. The snakes rise, forked tongues, tasting the air. They strike not with speed, but with slow, confident hunger. Then something odd happens. You don't scream, you smile. Your tiny fists clench around soft, scaled throats. And then, with the calmness of a baby grasping his favorite rattle, you squeeze, slowly, deliberately. Your grip tightens, little fingers punching the coils into knots. One snake jerks, the other thrashes. Hercules wakes, screaming, but you just keep holding on. In a few seconds, the snakes fall still, dead. You've just committed your first double homicide with chubby baby arms. The nurse bursts in, sees the scene, and faints. Understandable. Alcmene runs to you, eyes wide, her heart galloping like a war drum. She sees the snakes. She sees your cooing face, still half covered in their scales. Even though she doesn't know what this moment means, she knows it means something. She cradles you to her chest stand, stares up at the ceiling like someone expecting a divine invoice. Amphitryon gets wind of the scene and calls in Tiresias, the blind prophet. Because when your baby strangles supernatural vipers, you don't call the midwife, you call, in myth's most overworked psychic. Tiresias hobbles in, feels the aura in the room, and does what he does best: dramatic declarations. His child, he croaks, will rise above all men. His name will echo in eternity, and the gods will never leave him alone. That last part is not metaphor, not hyperbole, just a terrifying career prediction. Alcmene listens, rocking you gently, while Iphicles sobs in the background. She doesn't speak, but her eyes, they flicker with that ancient, dangerous glow of mothers who know their child isn't like the others and who will do anything to protect him. Later, stories of that night ripple across Greece. Poets sing of the baby who crushed death in his cradle. Philosophers debate if it was divine strength or primal instinct. And Hera, she starts planning her next move, because you're not just some prophecy footnote anymore. You're a threat. You don't notice it yet. Of course, you're still chewing on your own fist and blinking up at candlelight like it's the most interesting show in town. But the palace around you is changing. It's quieter now. Cards at your door, yes, but also that hushed, slightly nervous energy that settles in when people start saying, "He's touched by the gods," but don't really mean it in a comforting way. You grow quickly, too quickly. Within your first year, your feet are already poking out of your cradle. Nurses have to make new tunics every other moon. You laugh louder, cry harder, and hold eye contact like a philosopher in a staring contest with fate. And your mother, Alcmene, she's watching all of it with a mix of awe and low-level panic. She's seen the snake thing. Let's not forget it, even though she tries to treat you like a normal child, it's hard to cuddle a toddler who once crushed divine serpents like grapes at harvest. Still, she holds you every night. She tells you stories. She sings softly in old dialects that haven't been heard since her grandmother's time. You don't understand the words, but you sleep deeper when she does. Meanwhile, let's talk about the other twin, Ithacles. Poor guy. He's fine, perfectly mortal, likes toys, hates naps, cries when his blanket is cold. But imagine being born just minutes apart from your brother, only to find that he's out here lifting ox carts and snapping olive branches like toothpicks. There's a certain existential unfairness to it. Historians still argue whether Ithacles resented you or just stayed out of your way. Some ancient texts say he grew into a respectable man. Others suggest he kind of hovered in your shadow until he quietly joined a militia and never got his own epic poem. Either way, from the start, the divide between you two was clear. One of you was destined for something huge, the other for a helpful exposition now. Here's where things get mythically medical. The scholars of the time, yes, even in ancient Greece, were very into the idea that divine children left signs in the womb. According to one fringe theory whispered through temple halls, Alcmene's belly had glowed faintly at night, as if starlight lived inside her. Another midwife claimed your mother never once experienced normal pregnancy cravings, but instead begged for strange things like goat cheese dipped in honey, topped with mint and barley ash. Supposedly the delicacy of Olympus, or indigestion. Hard to say, Alcmene knew there was something different about this pregnancy, even before you kicked. And that's another thing. You didn't kick. You pushed, not like a playful thump. We're talking full body shoves, hard enough that she once stumbled walking up temple steps. The priestess took one look at her wobbling belly and whispered, "That child will bring war or glory, or both." She wasn't wrong. Your movements in the womb grew more coordinated over time. Ithacles rolled. You lunged. By the 9th month, it felt less like a pregnancy and more like an internal wrestling match. Some say Alcmene's ribs never fully healed. Others say she bore the pain without complaint, biting her lip until it bled, silently praying to Hera to take pity. Spoiler, she wouldn't. Now, let's zoom out a little. Thebes is an old city by this time, filled with marble columns and dusty legends. People don't trust prophecies the way they used to, but they still light candles for their household. Gods and whisper thanks to the river spirits when their fishing nets come back full. So when word gets around that Alcmene has birthed not one, but 2 sons, and one of them already has a death count before teething, you can bet it spreads fast. Songs begin to appear in local taverns. Silly, drunken tunes about the snakes laying baby who sleeps with one eye open. One particularly annoying ditty compares you to a tiny godling who pees lightning and farts thunder. It's not flattering, but it's popular. Your name begins to travel. Herakles. Some still say Alceus, your birth name. But after the snake incident, your parents decide to rename you. Whether it was truly to honor Hera or just to throw her off the scent, we'll never know. You become Hercules, glory of Hera, a name like a dare, and Hera hears it, loud and clear. You're only a toddler now, waddling through the garden, clucking figs and handing them proudly to servants who pretend to swoon. You're unaware of the gods whispering about you, Hera's plans growing darker. But there's something in you already that senses you are not like the others. You once walk into the stable, all of 2.5 years old, and pat the neck of the meanest warhorse in Thebes, a horse that had thrown 4 grooms and bit a messenger. It snorts, paws the ground, then bows its head. You giggle. The groom watching drops his sponge in awe. Later, he swears the horse spoke to you. No one believes him, but the story spreads. Anyway, a few months later, carry a bronze toy sword, one far too heavy for a child, and start slicing weeds in the courtyard. With perfect form, Kami sees you from the balcony and turns away, her face pale. It's one thing to love a gifted child. It's another to realize they are growing into something that even the gods fear. You're not just stronger, you're chosen. Not chosen in the sparkly Disney sense. Chosen like a tree, the wind won't stop shaking. Like a mountain, everyone expects to hold the storm. And even though you're too young to know it yet, every step you take is shaping the path toward a life that will be anything but gentle. For now, though you're still small enough to nap in your mother's lap, still innocent enough to believe that all shadows are just places waiting for light. But Hera is already making her next move, and this time, she won't send snakes. You're 4 years old now, or thereabouts. Hard to say exactly, since ancient Greece wasn't big on birthday parties unless a goat was involved. But you're definitely old enough to swing a stick like a sword, ask loud questions at inappropriate times, and chase chickens around the palace yard until someone trips. You've got strength in your legs, lightning in your grip, and a kind of mischief in your smile that makes adults second-guess every word you say. And above you, far, far above Hera, is done waiting. She doesn't send monsters this time. Not directly. No hissing surprises or fanged bedtime intruders. This plan is cleaner, sneakier, less about violence, more about timing, because Hera knows what most mortals don't. Destiny is fragile. Even the mightiest prophecy can be cracked open if you strike the right hinge. And the hinge, in your case, is when you're born. Let's rewind. Zeus once made a bold claim, classic Zeus booming across Olympus, that the next male born from his line would rule all the lands and command all men. Which, let's be honest, is a pretty ambitious baby shower toast. But Hera, ever the strategist, has no intention of letting that happen. She can't unmake you. She can manipulate the fine print, so she races against your mother's labor. Here's the scene. Alcmene is in her chamber, pain grinding through her like ocean waves over stone. Every contraction brings her closer to your birth bud, closer to Hera's trap. Because while Thebes is focused on the cries of one queen, another woman, Nisip, lies just across the fields in Argellus. Her body quiet and still until Hera intervenes. She sends Eileithyia, goddess of childbirth, to speed up Nisip's labor while simultaneously slowing yours down. You've heard that right, your entrance into the world is delayed on purpose by divine bureaucracy. Imagine waiting in a celestial DMV line for someone to press go on your birth certificate. You're ready to be born. Hercules is ready. But Hera holds you back just long enough. The result? Nisip gives birth first. Her son, Eurystheus, beats you to the finish line by mere minutes. He is mortal, mild, not particularly notable except for the fact that he now technically fulfills Zeus's prophecy. The throne, the glory, the honor, it's all his, at least on paper. Hera has rerouted fate, and Zeus, for once, he's speechless, which is saying something, considering he once narrated an entire rainstorm to himself out of boredom. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Most myths agree that you and Iphicles were carried to term without major issue. That Alcmene labored for hours while Hera kept her fingers wrapped around the cosmic pause button. But there's a fringe tale told in whispers among temple scribes that says a priestess caught Hera mid-sabotage. Not physically, of course. No one survives that. But she saw a shadow flicker across the temple torches at midnight, the flames all turning green for a heartbeat. And when she awoke, her mouth was filled with bees. Weird, yes, cut, in ancient myth, bees usually mean the gods are watching, or sometimes that you're about to become a prophet, or both. In any case, your birth is officially late. Late enough that Eurystheus is now first in line for everything: titles, rights, divine protection, even the weird birthday crown made of bay leaves and regret. And what about you? You're born into a world already off kilter. The midwives cheer when you arrive. Alcmene sobs with relief. Amphitryon, unsure whether to be proud or mildly terrified. kisses your forehead, and names you Hercules, because, hey, maybe flattery will buy Hera's mercy. Hint, it won't. But Hera's plan doesn't stop with the baby swap. No. She starts spinning a web of expectations. She makes sure that Eurystheus is given official titles in Argos and crowned young. She whispers into the ears of oracles and priests that this quiet boy is the one they should be watching. And all the while, she watches you from a distance, eyes sharp as hawks. You don't know any of this, of course. You're busy dragging sticks twice your size across the palace lawn and asking inconvenient questions, like, why do goats have square eyes? And can I lift that statue? Spoiler, yes, you can. Please don't. The servants give you space. The nobles give you titles. And the guards have started referring to you in hushed tones as the Thunderborn. You don't understand the name yet, but it feels right. By age 5, you break a bronze bowl by squeezing it too tightly in your hands. By 6, you wrestle a swan into submission in the bathhouse. Don't ask why there was a swan in the bathhouse. Greece had weird plumbing. By 7, you carried 2 calves across the courtyard, one under each arm, just to prove a point. And still you are not heir. Eurystheus is. He sits in a polished room somewhere far away, clutching scrolls and listening to tutors, blissfully unaware that he only exists in his position because a goddess decided to pause your birth. And that you, out here lifting livestock, like you're grocery shopping, are slowly becoming the most dangerous thing Hera ever created by accident. The universe, it seems, doesn't like being tricked. And while Hera thinks she's won this round, the fates are already sharpening their shears, because prophecy doesn't die, it just gets postponed. You're 8 now, give or take, and life in the palace feels like it's balancing on a blade. On the surface, everything looks golden. Servants bow as you pass. Your mother still sings at dusk, and the training yard echoes with your laughter as you lift heavier and jump farther than anyone else your age. But something cold and coiled hums just beneath it, all something waiting. Alcmene senses it first. It shows up in the way she tucks you in a little tighter at night, how her fingers linger just a breath longer at your brow, as if checking for signs of lightning. Amphitryon, for all his proud father's speeches and chuckles, watches you from doorways with an expression that isn't quite fear, but isn't far off either. And the palace guards, they've started stepping a little wider around you. No one says it out loud, but they've all heard the stories about the snakes, about the strength, and they know Hera never forgets. One night, just after the moon has slipped behind a cloud and the oil lamps begin to stutter in their glass bowls, you wake with a chill crawling down your spine. It's that kind of quiet only gods can make. A hush that presses on your chest, makes the hairs on your arms lift, even in the summer heat. Your room is still. The stone walls gleamed faintly in the moonlight. Iphicles sleeps soundly nearby, drooling onto a pillow he'll deny belongs to him. He sit up, and that's when you hear it. A hiss, not from under the bed, not from the rafters. It's time. The sound seems to fill the room like it's crawling inside your ears, winding through the seams of your dreams. Your breath catches, yet before you can shout, the shadows shift, but nothing appears. You climb from the bed, barefoot on cold tile, and press your back to the wall. There's nothing there, and then you realize it's not a hiss you hear, it's whispers. Dozens of them, slithering syllables curling around the room, wind through reeds or silk dragged over bone. You clutch the tiny toy sword you sleep with. It's bronze and dull, but in your hand it suddenly feels heavier, as if it remembers the last time you defended yourself in your sleep. You don't know this yet, but Hera has sent something new. Not snakes, not beasts, not even curses. She sends dreams, not the gentle kind, not the kind where you float through olive groves or chase birds through the fields. These are heavy, twisted, they throb with guilt you haven't earned yet, and fears you won't understand for years. You see yourself grown, chained, soaked in sweat, dragging something too massive to name across a desert. You see a lion with burning eyes, a woman who weeps blood, a mountain on fire. And then, worst of all, you see your mother walking away. You wake again, really wake this time, gasping, nails dug into the stone floor. Hercules is still asleep, but the moon is back, and your toy sword is snapped in two. Alcmene rushes in minutes later, her robe fluttering like wings, having felt something in her sleep. She finds you curled up, silent, shaking. She holds you without asking questions. But when morning comes, she orders bronze shields to be hung on the walls of your room. Real ones, not toys. And she has priests come to bless the doorway with olive oil and sacred herbs. The whispers don't return that night, but you never forget them, and neither does she. Word spreads, as it always does. And soon, you're the boy with shields on his walls and priest in his hallway. Some of the palace staff call you haunted. Others say you're touched. One particularly superstitious cook starts leaving honey cakes at your door, just in case. The gods get hungry. You eat one. It's not bad now. Let's take a step back and remember where you are. This is ancient Thebes, and it's not exactly a therapy-forward society. When a child has a nightmare, they're told to pray harder. When a child breaks a toy sword in their sleep, they're told to wrestle goats until they feel better. No one really knows what to do with you, but the dreams keep happening. Not nightly, but often enough that the palace starts to dim around you, like a sun trying to shine through fog. People still bow, still cheer, but they stop meeting your eyes. Even Hercules grows distant, sticking to corners and saying things like, "You're weird lately," and you talk in your sleep. You want to tell him the truth, that you see things you don't understand, that you feel fire in your hands when you touch the walls sometimes, that you think something inside you might not entirely be human. But how do you explain that? Instead, you throw yourself into training. You start wrestling the older boys, running longer distances, climbing anything that stands still long enough. You try to fight off the dreams with exhaustion, and for a while, it works, until one morning, you're eating breakfast grapes, barley bread, and goat cheese, standard ancient Greek child meal. Nan, you accidentally crush a goblet while sipping from it. Just crack, splash, silence. The wine spills down your arm. Amphitryon looks up sharply. The table stills. And Alcmene just whispers, "It's starting," because she knows what's next. What's always next. When Hera can't touch you in your sleep, she will try again in daylight, in animals, in accidents, in strangers who smile just a little too widely. And Alcmene knows she can't shield you forever. That afternoon, a visitor arrives, a tall man dressed in traveling robes, dust on his sandals and knowledge in his eyes. His name is whispered to the court, Linus, a renowned tutor sent by someone important, someone with power enough to say, "This boy must be educated," because even if you're not the heir to the throne, you are something bigger, something dangerous, something sacred. And Hera, she's not done with you yet, not even close. You meet your first teacher under an olive tree. The sun is pale and slanted, painting your shadow long across the courtyard. You're barefoot, shirtless, and halfway through digging a hole with your hands not because anyone told you to, but because you want to see how deep the earth will let you go. It's the kind of kid you are. It's the kind that doesn't wait for permission. It's the kind that breaks the sky open just to see what falls out. Linus watches you for a moment before speaking. "That's good soil for roots," he says, gesturing at the trench you're carving through a palace lawn. You blink up at him, smeared with dirt, suspicious of this stranger who talks like a poet and doesn't flinch when you stand up to your full, small, but mighty height. He's old, not crumpling old, but experienced. Lines around his eyes, scars on his hands, a lyre strapped to his back, and a scroll under one arm, which you instantly suspect contains boring things like grammar and consequences. Linus bows slightly. "I'm here to teach you music, letters, and law," he says. You tilt your head, adds with a smile, "and how not to strangle your classmates." A fair introduction, because by now, your strength isn't just unusual, it's borderline terrifying. You don't mean to break things, but you do. Spears snap like twigs. Doors swing off hinges. One time, you sneezed and knocked over a column of clay jars. Amphitryon laughed. Alcmene did not doubt in Hera. She watches through every slip-up, every smashed jar, every scraped servant. She knows you're getting stronger, and she's just biding her time. Linus doesn't seem afraid of you though, which is new. He begins his lessons, slowly rhythms, stories, myths that are older than your bones. He makes you listen to the soft pluck of strings, feel the way sound moves like water. You're not exactly patient, but there's something about the music that quiets you. You like how the notes don't fight back. It's how they answer gently when you press too hard. One afternoon, Linus hands you a lyre. You hold it like you're afraid it might shatter. He shows you how to stroke the strings, not punch them, not claw them. You try, the sound is bad. The goats outside wince. "You're not fighting the strings," he says. "You're asking them a question." You, like that, you try again. The goats approve, but music is only part of it. Linus teaches you about ethics, honor, heroic codes, how to speak clearly, think before you swing a club, and maybe, just maybe, consider that not everything needs to be solved by lifting it. It's going well until it isn't, because one day, Linus criticizes your playing in front of the court. You're trying a complicated melodia, hymn to Apollo, and your fingers keep missing. The rhythm limps along like a one-legged centaur. You're already frustrated, already hot with shame. Then Linus, well-meaning and firm, says, "You're holding it like a weapon." Again, and you snap. Literally, you hurl the lyre across the courtyard, shattering it against a column with splinters. Silence follows. Everyone freezes. Linus approaches you, calm but stern. "Hercules," he says, "you must master your temper before it masters you." You clench your fists. Your breath gets short. Get something inside you coiled. Hear a twisted thing. Lunges. You don't remember the swing. You don't remember the impact. But the next thing you know, Linus is on the ground, crumpled, bleeding, his neck bent in a way that human necks aren't supposed to bend. He doesn't move. You do backwards, stumbling, eyes wide, hands shaking. You didn't mean to. You didn't mean to. The next few hours are a blur. Servants running, Amphitryon shouting, Kami weeping softly into the folds of her robe, ivacles hiding behind a curtain, pale as parchment. No one touches you. No one speaks to you directly. They just look, some in fear, some in pity, some in quiet, grim confirmation. Because you're not just strong, you're dangerous. And Hera, she smiles now, not because Linus is dead. That was never the plan, but because she's finally seen it. Your flaw, not a weakness of the body, but a fracture in the spirit. You feel too much, rage, too quickly. And she knows that in time, it won't just be teachers who fall beneath your hands. Alcmene tries to defend you, even in her grief. She says it was an accident, okay? That you didn't mean to kill him, okay? That it was the heat, the stress, the pressure. But Amphitryon disagrees, and the court agrees with him. You must be sent away, not forever, just for a while, to train, to learn, to be shaped by something stronger than your fists. Maybe a noble's household, maybe a centaur's cave, maybe anywhere but here. You don't fight the decision. You don't cry. You just pack what little you have. A cloak, a belt, a small pendant carved by Ithacal shaped like a lion's paw. And you walk away from thieves, away from your mother's lullabies and your father's wary eyes, into a new kind of wilderness where the real lessons begin. You walk for days. Thebes fades behind you, wrapped in mist and judgment and memories you're too young to carry properly. At first, the road is lonely. Just the crunch of sandals on dust, the occasional bird call, and the weight of what you did. To Linus settling into your bones like a second skeleton. Every few steps, you look over your shoulder, but no one comes after you. You're not banished, not exactly, but it feels like exile. The difference is only political. Alcmene kissed your forehead before you left. Iphicles handed you a small bag of dried figs, said, "Don't do anything dumb," then hugged you tighter than he meant to. Amphitryon, he just looked away. You've never felt smaller, but Hera, she's thrilled. She watches you stumble through olive groves and over rocky hills, her fingers tightening around the loom of fate. A boy on the edge of becoming something too big, too strong, too tragic. She can taste it. Eventually, your path curves toward a cliff-ringed valley where the air smells like pine sap and clean stone. You don't know it yet, but this is Mount Pelion, home of Chiron, and this, whether you like it or not, is your new school. Now, a quick detour for the curious. Chiron isn't just any centaur. He's the only decent one. Most of his kind are, well, let's say, allergic to shirts and personal space. Wild, rowdy, permanently wine drunk. But Chiron, he's different. Wise, calm, legs of a stallion, brain of a philosopher, patience of a saint. He's tutored everyone from Achilles to Jason. Some say he was born from Kronos himself. Others say he emerged fully formed from a crack in a mountain, humming lullabies in ancient Greek. Historians still argue whether Chiron ever actually aged, or whether he just became more legendary with every student. You first see him at dusk, standing under a cypress tree, silhouetted against a sky that looks like spilled ink. You stop walking. He doesn't move. You've never met a centaur before. Part man, part horse. All myth. Chiron nods once. "Hercules," he says, not as a question. You nod back. He turns and starts walking. "Come, we begin at sunrise." That's it. No greetings, no questions, no mention of Linus. Just a teacher who already knows more than he says and student who doesn't want to admit how lost he feels. The training is brutal, not physically. That part's easy. You've lifted boulders for fun, wrestled bulls, built your own lean-to by flipping a tree upside down. Chiron doesn't test your strength. He tests yourself. He starts with silence. For the first 2 weeks, he doesn't speak to you except to offer simple instructions. Lift, carve, tea, listen. He makes you sit still for hours and watch the wind move through grass, count the wing beats of passing birds, name the colors of dusk in order from brightest to fading. You hate it at first. Then, one night, sitting alone beside a low fire, you realize you don't feel angry. Not just that you aren't angry, you've never felt so calm. The wind no longer feels like a dare. The silence doesn't itch. It rests on your skin like balm. Chiron was teaching you stillness. The next phase is learning. Real learning. Astronomy, medicine, navigation, poetry. You memorize herbs by smell and healing by taste. You write odes in the sand and watch the stars march across the heavens like quiet soldiers. Chiron never praises, but he doesn't correct much either, which is, in its own way, worse. Because now you want to impress him. He does teach you weapons, but not how you'd expect. No brute drills or showy flourishes. Instead, form, balance, control. How to move as if your strength were borrowed, not owed. He makes you use light spears, delicate bows. You ask once, when he'll let you swing a club again, when you can wield a reed without breaking it, he replies. You go back to practice. By now, months have passed, maybe more. Seasons change. Your shoulders broaden, your face sharpens, but something deeper changes too, okay? You stop flinching at your own power. Stop fearing every crack and snap as you're doing. Your hands grow steadier, okay? Your eyes keener. And then, one morning, Chiron asks you to walk with him, higher than usual, past the cliffs, into the thinning air where eagles nest. There, perched on a ledge with a view of the sea, he finally speaks plainly. You'll be hated, he says. You'll be praised. Neither will define you. You nod. You will be punished for what others fear, and punished again for what you do with that fear. Still, you nod. And yet, if you choose the harder path, you choose penance over power, mercy over rage, you will be remembered not just as strong, but as good. That part sticks, because somewhere in your chest, beneath the thunder, beneath the weight of prophecy and the scent of divine betrayal, you want to be good, you just don't know if you're allowed to be. Chiron places a scroll in your hand. It's time, he says. Time for what? To go home. Home. The word feels like stone in your mouth, but you understand. You're not the boy who left Thebes anymore. You're something heavier now, something honed. The wildness is still there, but it knows how to sit quietly beside the fire. You pack up your things, your lyre, now fully repaired, okay? Your scrolls, your cloak, okay? And the lion's paw icicles carved for you, worn smooth by your thumb. You turn to thank Chiron, but he's already walking away. Thebes isn't as big as you remember, or maybe you've just grown. You crest the last ridge before the city, cloak snapped by the wind, and stare down at the tiled roofs, the old stone towers, the dusty olive groves stretched like faded embroidery around the city walls. Smoke curls from chimneys, bells echo. Somewhere, a goat bleats in a way that makes you oddly nostalgic. You take a breath, then another dot, and then you keep walking. No one announces your return. There are no trumpets, no parades, no dramatic reunions with teary orchestras swelling in the background. You're just a boy in travel-stained sandals, slipping through the gates at dusk with a lyre slung over one shoulder and 1,000 memories curled behind your ribs like sleeping cats. But people notice. Oh, do they notice? The servants, the guards, the merchants along the stone path, they all turn and squint and lean in, because the last time they saw you, you were being quietly escorted out of the city for killing a tutor with your bare hands. And now you walk with the stillness of a blade that knows exactly how sharp it is. You don't storm through the palace gates. Eunuch.amphitron opens the door himself. That's unexpected. He's older, no grayer around the temples, deeper lines between his brows. His mouth opens slightly when he sees you. You brace for a speech, a reprimand, maybe a tear, but he just steps aside and says, "You're late for supper." Inside, everything is both familiar and strange. The walls are the same, but the echoes are quieter. Hercules is taller, leaner, wearing the smug grin of someone who's been getting away with being the normal one. He nods at you. "Nice hair," he says. You nod back. "Nice tunic. It always wrinkled like that." He grins wider. Alcmene is the last to appear. She walks into the room like she hasn't aged a day, but her eyes tell a different story. When she sees you, her hand rises to her chest. It's not out of fear, not even surprise. Small, instinctive check to see if her heart's still there. She doesn't speak. She just walks to you and wraps her arms around you like a curtain closing on a play no one saw the beginning of. For the first time in years, you sleep in your old bed. The shields still hang on the walls. It's the same torch holder, the same cold tiles. It's the same faint scent of lavender from from the cushion your mother embroidered. When you were born, you fall asleep without dreams, but not for long, because Hera's still watching. The very next morning, Amphitryon informs you that it's time you began preparing to serve the realm, which in ancient Greek noble speak means you're getting married. You blink. To whom? Her name is Megara, he says. You've heard the name. Daughter of the king of Thebes, educated, gentle, strong in the way wind shapes stone, and apparently, according to both families' backroom handshakes, yours. Megara enters the courtyard 2 days later. You expect fanfare, you expect pearls and ceremonial robes, and some long-winded priests mumbling about shared harvests and progeny. What you don't expect is her. She's leaning against the stone archway, arms crossed, eyes sharp. You're taller than I imagined, she says, and quieter. You blink. That's because I'm trying to figure out if you're about to insult me or not. She laughs. Good instinct. Keep it. Marriage comes fast in myth. It's faster than sense, sometimes, but not this time. 'Cause Megara isn't just smart, she's steady. She doesn't swoon at your strength, doesn't flinch when you show her how. Easily, you can twist bronze into knots. She watches, listens, pushes back. You spar. You walk. You argue about which gods are the most ridiculous. You both agree it's Pan, though Dionysus is a close second. You learn how to speak beside her, not at her, not over her. Beside. It's new. It is good. You fall in love, the way earthquakes happen, suddenly, and with lasting consequences. Historians still argue whether the love between you and Megara was arranged, romantic, or simply functional. But the poems, yes. Even the stuffy ones describe you both with phrases like bound in golden calm and storm lovers beneath still skies, which, let's be honest, is pretty poetic for a guy who once arm wrestled a boar for fun. And here's the thing. For a while, Hera stays quiet. Maybe she's bored. Maybe she's waiting. Maybe she's calculating how best to destroy what you just started to build, because she always does. But in those quiet years, you have peace. You and Megara marry under the stars with no grand parade. Just a circle of flickering lamps, a priest reciting oaths, and icicles trying not to cry. You kiss her gently, carry her across the threshold. You build a home together, stone by stone, word by word, and then you become a father. 2 children, some say 3. Tiny, perfect things with fists like plums and cries like crashing waves. You hold them in your arms and feel something deeper than strength, older than prophecy. You feel human, but Hera remembers. She hasn't forgotten the snakes, or the serpent you crushed, or the name you were given, Hercules. Glory of Hera, and now that you've built something real, she knows exactly how to tear it down. You don't see it coming. That's the cruelest part. You're a father now, a husband, a hero, yes, but a domestic one, fixing fences, wiping noses, singing lullabies in a voice that still rumbles like distant thunder. The palace is full of giggles and scattered toys. Megara moves through it all like a comet, graceful, burning, unstoppable. Your mornings start with the little feet on your chest and small hands tugging at your curls. Your nights end with Megara reading aloud from scrolls, while your children fall asleep mid-sentence. You've never been happier, never more grounded, never more mortal. And that, precisely, is the problem. Hera has waited for you to stop looking over your shoulder, waited for your calluses to soften, your heart to root into the earth, because gods don't just strike when you're weak. Sometimes they wait until your whole it begins on a harvest day. The sky is clear. The fields are golden. You're returning from a walk with your youngest. Some versions say he's barely toddling. Others say he rides on your shoulder like a tiny prince with jam on his chin. Either way, you're smiling, and then something strange happens. You hear buzzing, loud, unnatural, thick like oil in your ears. You stop walking. The air turns heavy. Time doesn't slow, it folds. The trees tilt. The sun seems to wink. And then you hear a woman's voice, your mother's, maybe, or Megara's, but it's twisted. It's echoing from somewhere inside your skull. You blink, and suddenly, you're not in the courtyard anymore. You're in a battlefield, blood on your hands, screams in your ears. Weapons flashing around you like dragonflies. You can't tell a friend from foe, shadow from shape. Something charges. You strike. Someone begs. You roar. You move like a god, but feel like a puppet. Hera has sent madness. Not the kind you can fight. Not the kind you can lift or break or outrun. This madness sits behind your eyes. It wears your face. You don't remember what happens next. Not clearly. There are pieces, a broken vase, a scream, a child's toy crushed beneath your heel. Megara's voice calling your name, your real name. Not Hercules, not Thunderborn, just you, and then silence. When you wake, the madness has lifted, but everything else is gone. Meager. Your children gone, and your hands red. You drop to your knees in the courtyard, staring at what's left of your world. The palace is silent. No birds, no footsteps. Even the air refuses to move. You scream once, only once, then you rise, because you are Hercules. And if this was the gods' doing, okay, you will not run. You will pay. You walk for 3 days without sleep. Dirt in your teeth, blood on your tunic. Don't eat, you don't speak, you don't even cry. You just walk north, toward the Oracle of Delphi. Now, let's pause for one thread of mythic trivia. Delphi wasn't just a tourist trap with incense and riddles. It was considered the direct line to Apollo, a hotline for fate. Pilgrims walked for months just to ask one question. You arrive with none. You already know what must happen. The oracle doesn't look at you when you enter. She already knows. She rocks gently, eyes rolled back, lips parting, and the gods speak. You must serve. That is your penance, not an apology, not a tearful confession. You must work off your crime 12 times, 12 tasks, 12 impossible acts. You ask for the list. She laughs. You'll know them when they come. And then she names your master, Eurystheus, your cousin, your rival, the mewling baby who stole your prophecy with a technicality and now rules the land you were destined for. You barely remember his face, but now, he's the one you must obey. He will set the labors. He will judge your progress, and you will endure it, because the only way to honor what you destroyed is to carry the weight of it. The oracle fades. Incense burns low, and you, Hercules, monster and martyr, leave Delphi with a weight of 12 futures on your shoulders. Some say. Hera smiles again that day, not out of triumph, but because she knows this is only the beginning. The road to tyrants is jagged with silence. You've walked a lot of roads by now, stone paths in Thebes, hunting trails near Pelion, meadows behind your childhood home where your children once laughed and tumbled like wild puppies. But this one is different. This one doesn't feel like a journey. It feels like a sentence. Tyrants rises before you like a clenched fist, sits walls older than stories. Its towers hunched beneath centuries of dust and scheming. This is Eurystheus' stronghold, your cousin, your king, and now your master. You remember him vaguely, wide-eyed, quiet, smaller than you in every way. You once gave him a black eye for mocking your tunic. He cried. You didn't. Now, he holds your fate like a leash. The guards recognize you instantly, hard not to, given you're built like a temple column, and dragging guilt behind you like a cartload of stone. They open the gates. Inside, the air is heavy with the scent of bronze, smoke, and oiled power. Eurystheus doesn't sit on his throne. He perches on it, like a man who thinks it might bite. When he sees you, he stiffens. Not with fear, he's smug now, stewed in power, but with the unease of someone who knows the gods just handed him a loaded crossbow and told him not to blink. Hercules says, "You don't answer, you just kneel." He flinches, then masks it with a cough. "You've come to serve." You nod. He makes a show of unrolling a scroll, as if he's been preparing this moment since birth. 12 labors, he says, set by the will of the gods. Complete them, and your sins are cleansed. You already know that part. But then he grins, the kind of grin that's practiced and polished. Chills. Let's start with something ... simple. You wait, he reads. Slay the Nemean lion. You blink, then raise one brow. A lion. Eurystheus must notice your skepticism because he leans forward. Not just any lion. This one's hide is impervious to weapons. Its claws are sharper than swords. It devours men whole, and it lives in a cave lined with bones. You shrugged. Still a lion. He waves you away with a dismissive flick. But as you leave the court, a thought flickers in your mind. This won't be just a test of strength. These labors are trials of will, of mind, of restraint. Hera didn't engineer this just to see you fight. She wants to see what breaks you. You head toward Nemea, where the lion waits down. Here's a fun mythological footnote. Historians still argue whether the Nemean lion was a literal beast or a metaphor for the invincibility of death. Some say it was the spawn of Typhon and Echidna, a monster so ancient it made even gods uneasy. Others claim it was just a big, really angry cat with a magic pelt. Either way, you're going to kill it. You arrive at the edge of Nemea as the sun begins to drown in a pool of copper. Locals slam their doors. They whisper when you pass. One old man offers you a carved club. "This won't work," he mutters, "but it might feel good to hold something." You thank him, then walk toward the forest. The trees there grow too close together. Light disappears quickly. It smells like blood and fur and the breath of something that's forgotten how to sleep. You find the cave by following the silence. And there, outlined against the dim mouth of it, stands the lion. It's massive, larger than a horse. Muscles knotted like twisted rope. Eyes molten gold. Its fur gleams like bronze, thick as armor, already stained with the blood of would-be heroes. It looks at you not with rage, but with recognition. You're not the first, but you'll be the last. You raise your borrowed club. It snaps on the first strike. You roll, dodge, slam a rock into its side. Nothing. Every weapon you try, javelins, daggers, even the spear Chiron gave you bounces off that hide-like throne. Petals, so you do something no one expects. You drop your weapons and wait. When the lion charges again, you meet it with your bare hands. The fight is brutal. Not flashy, not cinematic. Just raw, sweaty, bone-crushing struggle. You grab its neck. It claws your back. You roar. It bites. You lift it, throw it, pin it, till finally you find the one place where the pelt thins beneath the jaw. You choke it. Slowly, it thrashes again, then stills. You fall back, gasping, bloodied, bruised, but alive. You skin the beast, not with a blade, but with its own cloth, only thing sharp enough to pierce its hide. You wrap the pelt around your shoulders. Its head becomes your helmet. By the time you return to Tyrants, Hedo walk you stride. You wear death like a mantle. You enter Eurystheus' hall. He sees you and screams. He jumps into a jar. That's not a metaphor. It's a very large clay jar he had commissioned as a hiding spot, guessed in case you survived. He peeks out. trembling. You don't laugh. You just stand there, lion-faced and silent. Because this was only labor 1, and there are 11 more to go. You don't wait for applause. You leave. Kieran's, with the lion's pelt across your shoulders, and Eurystheus still hiding in his oversized jar, eyes just above the rim like a frightened owl. You don't turn back. You don't ask what's next. You already know the rhythm. Now, fight, survive, repeat. Eurystheus sends word by messenger. The next morning, your next task. The Lernaean Hydra. You'd heard whispers about it, even as a buoyant ancient serpent beast that guards the swamps of Lerna like some cursed secret. Multiple heads, venomous breath, and a body so poisonous that even its footprints are deadly. But the worst part? Cut off one head, and 2 grow back. It's the kind of riddle only the gods could invent, or Hera. She definitely had her hands in this one, okay? Some say she raised the Hydra just for this moment, okay? Just for you. Because if the first labor tested your strength, this one would test your strategy and your rage. So, you set out again. The journey to Lerna is short but thick with dread. The swamps hiss with rot and secrets. Locals won't go near the water. One woman throws salt over her shoulder just for having spoken the Hydra's name aloud. You're used to fear now. You just nod and walk on. You arrive just after dawn. The marsh is alive, not in a friendly way. Frogs croak like broken bells. The water glows faintly green, and in the center of it all, rising from a boggy island, like a nightmare stitched from every bad dream, increased the Hydra. 9 heads, at least. Some say more, others say fewer, but angrier. It hisses the moment it sees you. You don't hesitate. You charge. You swing your sword at the first head clean slice. It falls. You exhale, and then 2 new heads burst from the stump. You blink. Okay, you mutter. That's new. You try again. Slash chop, roaring. Each time, more heads sprout. Writhing, spitting venom, striking like living whips. One catches your leg. Another tears your shoulder. And now it's not a fight, it's a fire drill in a snake factory. You retreat, panting, soaked in swamp and your own blood. And you realize you can't win like this. You need help. So you do something you've never done before. You ask, enter Iolaus, your nephew, your loyal friend, and let's be honest, the only person in your life who can light a torch without accidentally setting a goat on fire. He arrives within hours, carrying bundles of dry wood and a face that says, I have no idea what I signed up for, but I trust you anyway. Together, you come up with a plan. You'll fight. He'll burn, every time you slice off a head, he'll cauterize the stump, searing it shut before new ones can grow. Painful, brutal, but effective. You wade into the muck again. Hydra shrieking, head snapping, breath curling like poison fog. This time, when you strike, Iolaus is there. Torch flaring, slice, burn. Slice, burn. You move like dancers, violent, filthy dancers. The air stinks of sulfur and blood. Your arms scream. The Hydra screams louder. One head left, you leap. Ring, your sword down with a crack like thunder. And then, silence. It collapses. Steam rises from the body. Your legs give out. You sit in the mud, panting, laughing weakly. Iolaus plops beside you and offers a fig. Want a snack? You take it. You burn the corpse. No chances. But even dead, the Hydra's venom remains. You dip your arrows into its blood. It soaks into the wood like wine. Those arrows will never miss, and they'll always kill. You return to Tyrants, coated in dried swamp and smoke, dragging Hydra, bones in a cart. Eurystheus doesn't scream this time. He just clears his throat and pretends he wasn't hiding behind a curtain. But later, when he updates the official record, he adds a note. Labor invalidated. Hercules had help. And just like that, the gods knock your total back to zero. No credit, no progress, just another reminder. You're not playing a fair game. Still, the pelt on your back and the poison on your arrows say otherwise. You won't give Hera the satisfaction of seeing you break. Not yet. Not ever. You stop expecting fairness. That's the real turning point. Not the lion, not the hydra, not even the scorched edge of Alas's torch. It's the moment you understand, deep in your bones, that these labors aren't about redemption. Not really. They're about survival, endurance, the long crawl through, punishment disguised as duty, and the next task Eurystheus assigns makes that painfully clear. Bring back the Serenian hind. A deer. You stare at him, deadpan. You want me to kill? Deer. No, he says. You can't kill it. You have to capture it. Alive. You blink a deer. Alive. That I can't hurt. He nods smugly. Oh, and it's sacred to Artemis. He adds. Right? So let's review. Your job is to chase a magical deer across the known world without harming it, while knowing that if you even scratch it, you'll incur the wrath of the goddess of the hunt, wilderness, and completely disproportionate vengeance. Great. You set out with a sigh and a handful of dry dates. Now, a Serenian hind isn't your average deer, just faster than anything else that touches the ground. Golden antlers, bronze hooves. Some say she glows faintly in moonlight. Others claim she's a shapeshifter, slipping between forms and shadows, just to mess with anyone who dares follow. You spend the entire first month not even seeing her, just hoofprints, bent grass, occasional glint of gold at the edge of the world. She's always one step ahead, always watching. You begin to lose your patience. You chase her across Arcadia, through thickets and over mountains, sleeping on moss, drinking from springs, muttering threats at bushes. Your sandals wear through. Your bowstring snaps from the damp. At one point, a bee flies into your eye. You spend half an hour howling at a tree, but you don't give up, because this isn't just a deer. It's discipline, incarnate. This is the labor that demands what none of the others do. Restraint. Q. Can't punch your way through this one. You can't outmuscle a goddess's pet. You have to be clever, quiet, patient. You hate it, but you learn. Finally, after nearly a year, you find her drinking from a cold river at dawn. You step carefully. Slowly, she doesn't run. Not yet. You whisper something, maybe a prayer, maybe a plea. Then you lunge, not with a weapon, but with rope. She bolts. You follow, through frost-covered grass, over jagged cliffs, across a narrow river that nearly sweeps you away. She's fast, but this time, you're ready. Let the rope fly, not to choke, not to trap, but to guide. It catches. She trips just enough. You leap, wrapping your arms around her with more reverence than aggression. She kicks, twists, nearly breaks your wrist, but then, suddenly, stillness. Your breath clouds in the morning air. You're both shaking, but she's caught, alive, unharmed. You whisper, "I'm sorry," into her fur. Not because you had to do this, but because you understand now what it's like to be used in someone else's game. What it's like to be hunted for someone else's punishment. And then Artemis arrives, because, of course she does. She steps from the trees like mist, solidifying into a goddess. Bow in hand, eyes sharp as flint. She says nothing, just stands there, watching. You bow low. She tilts her head. "Why should I let you live?" You rise slowly, meeting her gaze. "Because I did not harm her." She narrows her eyes. "She is my sacred charge, my creature, my sister in the woods." You nod, and now Eurystheus demands her, not for sacrifice, just for show. Artemis steps forward. Hind flicks her ears, but doesn't flee. The goddess lays a hand on her back, then on your shoulder. "Very well," she says. "Deliver her." but no delay. You nod, then, in a blink, they're gone. Just like that, vanished into mist. When you arrive in Tyrants with the hind trailing behind you, Eurystheus is furious. Not because you succeeded, but because you didn't cheat, you didn't maim, you didn't break. He can't call this labor, it's invalid. So he scowls and assigns the next. Bring me the Erymanthian boar, alive. You close your eyes. Another animal, another chase, another mountain. But you don't groan this time, because something has changed in you. You're learning not just to endure these tasks, but to understand them. Each beast, each trial, each wound in silence and splintered night teaches you something the gods never expected you to learn: how to be human. You know the pattern now? A beast, a mountain, a challenge that sounds simple on a scroll, but unfolds like a bad dream and leaves you bleeding in a ditch with a new scar and a better understanding of mortality. This time, the Erymanthian bore another creature, another ridiculous instruction: bring it back alive. You think Eurystheus must get a special kind of joy from imagining you trying to stuff a shrieking, tusked monster into a cart like some hairy dinner guest. He probably tells his advisors around a goblet of wine, oh yes, this one's impossible. He'll lose an eye, or at least some pride. You don't give him the satisfaction. You pack rope, you pack patience, you pack wine, and you head to Mount Erymanthos. Now, here's something fun. Ancient sources say this boar wasn't just big, was elemental, like nature had decided one day to roll all its stormy rage into a four-legged battering ram with razor tusks and hooves like boulders. Some said it could flatten trees. Others claimed it liked the taste of armor. And you're expected to deliver it like a polite package. Fine. The climb up Mount Erymanthos is treacherous. Fog clings to the stones like breath. Snow begins to drift around your ankles. Birds vanish. Even the silence sounds colder here. Halfway up, you stop at a small hut tucked into the slope. You knock. A familiar voice answers a center nod. Wild, like the others, but scholarly. A recluse, a collector of stories and wine and dangerous opinions about the gods. You met him once, years ago, when Chiron brought you on a trip through the mountains. He opens the door and his eyes widen. Hercules. Hey, he says, you look tired. You glance at your reflection in a frozen puddle. Thanks. He laughs and waves you inside, offers you roasted chestnuts and mead, and, most importantly, kindness. You talk by the fire. You tell him about the boar. He nods. It's fast, he warns, and angry. I've fought angry, you say, but have you trapped it? Fair point. He gives you a plan. Wait until morning, when the boar crashes through the snowy glen to drink at a half-frozen stream. Then, chase it. Not to catch it outright, but to drive it higher, where the snow grows deep and movement is slower. Simple in theory, stupid in practice. You wake before dawn. Volus gives you a wineskin and a nod. Then you run. You find the boar by the stream. Massive, foaming, tusks like curled daggers. It sees you and charges before you've even taken a proper breath. You leap aside. It misses barely. The chase begins. Through trees, over rocks, across frozen logs, slick with ice. Your thighs burn. Your breath fogs. The boar bellows behind. You, loud enough to rattle snow from the branches. You lead it uphill, steeper. Slower. It begins to lag. Snow, now past its knees. You circle, quick and careful. Draw the rope. Toss, miss. Toss again, snag. It bucks and thrashes, shaking snow in every direction like a miniature avalanche. You grit your teeth and pull. Muscles strain. Rope cuts your palm. But inch by inch, you drag it down into a drift, where it sinks, squealing. You sit in the snow beside it, panting. You say aloud, "This is the dumbest labor yet." The boar snorts in agreement. You make a sled from pine branches and drag the beast all the way back to Tyrant. When Eurystheus sees it, tied and furious, still very much alive, he screams again and jumps again, this time not into a jar but behind a screen, which is almost worse. You don't react, but later that night, as you clean your wounds and melt snow for drinking water, you hear laughter in the courtyard. Pholus. This laugh is heavier. You turn, and standing in the corner, clapping slowly, is Hera, not physically, of course, just a presence, a shimmer in the torchlight, a voice in the back of your head. "Well done," she says. "You've caught a pig." You stiffen, she steps closer. "But have you noticed? These labors don't cure anything. You're still grieving, still guilty, still just a mortal with blood on his hands." You don't respond, not out loud, but you grip the edge of the basin so tightly it cracks. Hera fades into mist, and you rise, because the boar is tied. The snow has melted, and the next task waits. You're halfway there now, 7 labors down, 5 to go. By any measure, you're a legend already. Lion slayer, hydra burner, deer whisperer, and now, boar wrangler. And yet, you're still a servant, still a sinner in the eyes of the gods. Still, Hercules, the man trying to scrub blood from his memory with impossible deeds. You expect the next command from Eurystheus to involve teeth or claws, something monstrous, something you can punch. But instead, he says, "Clean the Augean stables." You blink, "Come again." He smirks. That thin-lipped face of his practically humming with smugness. "You heard me. The stables. King Augeas of Elis. He's got more cattle than any man alive. They've been accumulating for 30 years. You're going to clean them. In one day. You stare, a labor to clean up cow poop. Now, you might think this is some kind of humiliation tactic, and you'd be absolutely right. Eurystheus wants you on your knees, scooping dung with your divine hands. No glory, no danger, filth. And Hera, oh, she's probably pouring nectar for the other gods right now, cackling. But you don't protest, because you've learned something. The lowliest tasks can carry the most weight. You travel to Elis. The air smells worse than a battlefield. And that's before you even see the stables. Picture this, hundreds, maybe thousands of sacred cattle, oxen, goats, even a few confused-looking donkeys, all blessed by the gods to never stop pooping. 30 years worth of it. You try not to gag. Augeas meets you with a raised eyebrow and a smirk of his own. He's a rich man, a lazy man, a man who's grown powerful by ignoring messes and letting others deal with consequences. Sound familiar? Okay. If I clean it in one day, I get 1/10 of your herd. He laughs. He agrees. He doesn't think you can do it. He's wrong, because here's the thing about being Hercules. You don't just have brawn, you have brains, too. You walk outside, down to the river, you study its path, its bend, speed, then you grab a boulder the size of a dining table and change the course of the river. You flood the stables, not wildly, not recklessly. You control its channel, it divert it through carved trenches that sweep through the reeking stalls like divine plumbing. The water rushes in, surges through, flushes out 30 years of filth in under 12 hours. When the sun sets, the stables are cleaner than they've ever been. The animals look stunned. So does Augeas. He tries to cheat you, of course. Deny the reward. Claim you used trickery, that it doesn't count. You don't argue. You don't even swing your club. You just leave, because you know Eurystheus will call this labor invalid too. Say it wasn't by your own hands. Say it doesn't count. Let them, because the stables are clean, and even the gods can't deny that filth. Washed away still counts as a kind of glory. Still, the next labor is a punishment for your cleverness. Drive away the Stymphalian birds. Doesn't sound terrifying? Let me describe them properly. These aren't just birds. They're man-eating, metal-feathered nightmares. Talons like razors. Wings that slice. Beaks that drill. They nest near Lake Stymphalios, hidden in dark pines, in mud-slicked marshes, swarming in clouds that block out the sun, and they scream. Not like birds, like women, dying women. Over and over. You arrive at the edge of the lake and stand still for hours, listening to them circle above, black and glinting. You try stones, arrows, even fire. Nothing works. They dart and dive and vanish. Then you remember Athena, because sometimes the gods offer help, small, quiet, begrudging help. She once gave you a pair of crotoloclashine bronze castanets, forged by Hephaestus himself. You take them from your pack. You climb a hill, and you clatter them like thunder. The sound is awful, cooing, unnatural. It splits the still air like lightning splits sky. The birds shriek in confusion, rising in panicked waves. You wait until the sky is full of them, then fire, arrow after arrow. Dipped in hydra poison, flies from your bow. Each one lands, each one kills. The flock scatters. You don't kill them. All but enough. They leave, and the people below weep in relief, because for the first time in years, they can hear their own thoughts again. You return to Tiryns with a few metal feathers in hand. Eurystheus looks at them like they're poisonous snakes. He asks no questions. You say no words, because now you're more than a killer. You're a strategist, a cleaner, storm with human eyes. And Hera, she watches all this from her high, cold seat on Olympus and wonders, what happens when even her fury isn't enough? The sky above Tiryns is clear when the next command arrives, but your shoulders ache like rain is coming. You don't even blink when Eurystheus reads it aloud. Fetch the Cretan bull. Sure, why not? Another sacred animal. Another bring it back alive request. You've lost count of how many creatures the gods have scattered across the landscape, just waiting to gore someone in the name of divine accountability. This one's special. Though Dotsi, the Cretan bull, isn't just a beast, it's a consequence, a symbol of divine tantrums and human foolishness. Gifted by Poseidon to King Minos of Crete, it was supposed to be sacrificed in honor of the sea god. Minos liked the bull too much, kept it, and sacrificed a lesser one instead. So Poseidon did what any reasonable, immortal being would do. Made the bull go violently insane. It rampaged across Crete, crushed fields, tore up vineyards, and made every local farmer rethink their livestock insurance policy. And now, it's yours to catch. The voyage to Crete is uneventful, sailors. Don't talk much when you're aboard, especially not when you spend the whole time sharpening poisoned arrows in absolute silence. Crete greets you with heat and wind and bulls. Well, one bull, glorious, massive, gleaming white, breathing steam, snorting like a forge. Locals direct you toward it without needing to be asked. Oh, that thing, yep, keeps destroying our olive presses. Good luck. You find it grazing on a hilltop, peaceful. You take one step forward, and it charges. The fight is, as the bards say, very undignified. You dodge behind trees, you leap over rocks. At one point, it catches you square in the ribs and launches you into a bush full of very sharp and very judgmental thistles. You roll, gasp, and finally leap onto its back. You don't stab it, you wrestle it, like a very large, very angry, very hoofed rug. Eventually, miraculously dash it tires. You don't know who's more surprised, the bull or you. You tie its legs with rope so thick it could hold up a temple, then lead it snorting and grumbling all the way back to the port. You arrive in Tiryns, like someone delivering a house-sized surprise birthday gift. Eurystheus doesn't even pretend to be calm. He jumps. Again, behind a wall. The bull breaks loose briefly and runs 2 laps around the courtyard before you tackle it into a statue of Hera. That part, still funny, and finally secure it. No applause, just a nod. And then, the 10th labor, still the mares of Diomedes. You frown. These aren't normal horses. You know that instantly. These are man-eating mares, literal carnivores. The ancient world's worst-kept secret of bad pet ownership. Diomedes, a warlike king in Thrace, feeds prisoners to them, says it keeps their coats shiny. Tyblee thinks that's charming. You set off with grim resolve. When you reach Thrace, see them in their paddocks, massive, blood-slicked mouths, stamping and frothing. One of them is chewing a bronze helmet like it's a sugar cube. You know better than to charge in alone, so you wait until night. You sneak into the camp, and here comes a twist. Diomedes catches you. Of course he does. You fight. It's brutal. Up, close, mud, fists, teeth. You're stronger. He's faster. But in the end, you win. You tie him and feed him to his own horses. It's grim, but poetic. They come, almost like they've been sated. You lead them gently away. No reins, no tricks, just .com. As if, finally, someone reminded them they weren't born to destroy, that they were just turned into monsters by a man who deserved none of their loyalty. You arrive in Tyrants again, and this time, Eurystheus says something new. 2 more. You nod. You already know what they are, because the next one will take you beyond Greece, and the last, well, the last might take you past life itself, but that's for tomorrow. Tonight, you sleep, not with peace, but with purpose. You've walked through storm and silence now, through glens and gutters, through blood and blessing and beasts with too many teeth. Your body is tired, but your soul continues to stride forward, carrying more than just the weight of the labors. You carry memory of children's laughter in old courtyards, of a lyre beside a campfire, of Hydra, steam and hoofbeats in the dark. And though the world around you grows harsher, colder, more cunning, you learn to step softer, slower, to breathe not like a soldier, like a man trying to forgive himself. The wind tonight brushes your cheek like a mother's hand. Somewhere in the distance, a river hums. You lie down on the earth. The lion's pelt wraps your shoulders. Your arrows sleep beside you, poisoned but peaceful. The gods do not whisper tonight. Even Hera is silent. Maybe, just maybe, the heavens have closed their eyes too. And you drift. No hero, no legend, just a man with calloused hands and a heartbeat like distant thunder. Let the stories rest for now. Let your breath slow. You did not survive because you were the strongest. You survived because you endured. Because somewhere beneath all the muscle and myth, you remembered how to love and how to let go. Sleep well, Hercules. You've earned it.